Hey everyone, I'm Basic Nerf, and you're checking out the Z-Curve bow from Zing Toys. First up, I want to say thank you to Zing Toys for sending me the Z-Curve bow to test out and review. I'm pleasantly surprised with this blaster, and while there are some pros and while there are some cons to it, overall it is a fun blaster to use and decently handy in Nerf wars. So this blaster retails for $19.99 in most major retailers in the USA. What you get with it is the bow, two of these Whistler arrows, I'm just going to call them that for now. I believe Zing Toys calls them something a little bit different. And one suction arrow. Again, I believe Zing Toys has a different name for this, but I'm just going to call it the suction arrows and the Whistler arrows. So it comes with 3 arrows and the bow for $20. Now, right out of the bat, I like getting items that I could use right away in games, and this is one of those items. Now, right out of the box, this isn't really a lot of items for $20. Compared to other brands, for example, say Nerf, you can get more darts for $20 that comes with the blaster, or more accessories. This just seems like something a little bit like a starter kit almost to the Zing Toys line. It doesn't come with a lot, which is good and bad because it keeps it simple, but at the same time, when you start using this more, you're going to want more arrows for it. Alright, so getting onto the bow, it's very easy to use. All you have to do is grab the handle, get an arrow, sling it through the loops. I think they call it the hook and loop system. And you pull back. And the farther you pull back, the more range it'll go. So I'll just do a quick test fire for you with one of my spare Whistler arrows here from another Z-Curve bow. And here's another little test fire. And one more. You guys heard that smack and immediately fell off the wall. This is something you do not want to use indoors though, just because of the size of the arrows and the amount of force you're putting behind it. It could break windows. If you look it up online, there's a few horror stories of where these things have broken windows. So I would not recommend using this at home. I was aiming at a very solid wall with no windows to the left or right of it at all. So like I mentioned previously, the more you pull it, the more it'll use this bungee system that they have here, and the more force it'll throw behind the arrow, and the farther it'll go. So I've been using this for about 3 days of Nerf, and it's still a little bit hard for me to use. I've been using Nerf blasters and darts for the whole 5 years that I've been Nerfing, so I still don't have a complete grasp on how to control this and how to control things like distance and power. A lot of times, for example, when I first started using it, I would overshoot my target and the arrows would go overhead, or they wouldn't have enough power and they would hit the ground before hitting my opponent. Aiming this is a little bit difficult to do just because there isn't really any sight or any reference point. I guess it's the middle. But a lot of times I found myself grabbing it, pulling, and then sometimes the bungee would go left or go right, just depending on how I was aiming it. And that's not really the item's fault. It's more of the user's fault in that case. But still, it can be a little bit tricky to use. That's why I mentioned this. So with the Whistler arrows, these are the more accurate arrow in the suction. The arrow is made up of a lot of foam, it feels like. It's very dense, but at the same time, if you squeeze in it hard, it will give. So that's good because if it hits something hard, it'll give and it won't hurt people as much. If the arrows do hit you, it just gives you a solid whack most of the time. Unless you're close up, then it's going to hurt a little bit more. But you probably don't want to be using this in close quarters or close to people just because they'll probably shoot you and outgun you faster. Now, using this in games, another hard part of it is that it only comes with 3 arrows out of the box. If you want to get more arrows, they sell a refill pack for about $8 or $9. It comes with, again, 2 more Whistlers and 1 more suction. Comparing that to other brands though, most brands will sell you more darts or more items for the same price than this. This is understandable though because it has a lot of materials in it, a lot of foam, it's got plastic going here in the middle, the wings. So there's a lot going into these arrows to make them fly properly and fly the best and still be durable. Haven't had any durability issues with my arrows and firing them in 3 days of Nerf. However, it's just a big turnoff though, because if you want to go full on bow or use your bow more, you're gonna have to pay up a bit extra. Another con I had with the arrows is that you're supposed to pinch on the tab here when you put it into the hook and loop system, which is fine, but for me, I have sweaty hands, and during like later in games, especially longer games, it gets a little bit hard to grasp, so my fingers start slipping a bit. Not really their fault, but just something I guess you have to watch out for if you have sweaty hands. These are a bit on the durable side, as you can see here. I'm bending it with a solid amount of force, but they're not really giving. They go back to the original form. The pull tab on the back is a little bit more flexible, but I don't see it breaking. It's going all the way, almost 90 degrees, and it's going back into place. You can easily bend it back. That's probably why they made it bendable, just in case people accidentally end up bending it one way, they can probably bend it back the other. So while the arrows are a bit more expensive than Nerf darts, I feel like the durability and the accuracy on these helps make up for that. Still though, in a world where, as I say, cash is king, you might not have $24 to go out and get just 9 more arrows. So while using this bow in about 3 days of nerfing, I admit I didn't hit a lot of people. Again, just because it's hard to go from shooting darts for 5 years to shooting arrows. I know a big selling point of these were the accuracy and the distance, and you get the most of those with the whistling arrows. But when people hear the whistling arrows, most of the time they tend to turn and dodge, or the wind can knock these out if you shoot it at a far distance. Not saying these are bad, I'm just saying it's hard for me to use this. I see a lot of potential with these, especially when I went to Armageddon this past June. Most people there are using high-powered homemade Nerf blasters and homemade darts, which get good distance, but this can outdistance them. So another con with these is that the bungee material used to make up the cords here is not UV resistant. So if you leave these in the sun, it's going to weaken these and potentially break them, and then you're going to have to get a new bow. So you definitely store this in somewhere shady. However, I've talked to them and they said they're definitely trying to make these UV resistant in the future, and this is going to be great for added durability. Again, since this is using an arrow and a loop system, you're not really going to get the greatest rate of fire with these things. You're really going to have to plan and time your shots with the arrows to make the most out of this. In the games I play and host, getting hit with an arrow is a one-hit KO versus normally getting hit 3 times by darts and then you're out of the game. So you can use that to your advantage there in those sort of games if you play by those rules. Otherwise, if you don't have those kind of rules, you still again have to be very careful and plan your shots. So again guys, at the end of this review, going over the pros and cons. The pros is that this is very, very fun to use. The arrows are very durable, have a lot of power behind them, and they have very solid accuracy. The cons is that it has a slow rate of fire. The bungee could break in the sun if you leave it there too long. It doesn't come with a lot of arrows out of the box, and the price is a little bit high for that. But otherwise, this is a very fun item to use, and you can be a solid force with this if you practice in your Nerf games. Well, I'm Basic Nerf. Hope you guys enjoyed this review. Stay tuned to my channel for more content. Peace out.